Undercover sex robots versus a weed-smoking vampire Coolio and his master, Space Dracula.
The fuck is this?
Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and however you want to self-identify, to the third episode of The Fuck Is This? A podcast on the internet about movies that nobody knows what the fuck they are. Well, some people know what they are because they worked on them, or they have,
or they starred in them.
Or they starred in them, and they have friends that know about them. It's a podcast about movies that a small chunk of the population knows what they are.
And soon we will know about them.
And soon everyone will know. Well, not everyone. Like a small chunk of the population who listens to this podcast will know. My name is Kaz Lescard. I'm your host. Joining me once again is my co-host, Jameson Rafter. How you doing, Jameson?
I'm doing just fine. Kaz, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Well, at the time that we are recording this, not at the time that you are listening to this, we are in the midst of the Halloween season. We're good. Whoa, this is the spooktacular edition of The Fuck Is This?
Our Halloween special.
That's right. That will probably drop closer to the start of the Christmas season.
Knowing our schedules and our work ethic.
Funny story about recording podcasts that I learned. Editing is hard.
It's a time-consuming process. It's a harsh mistress.
But we wanted to do a Halloween episode because those are fun. And it doesn't really matter when they drop. Because, you know what? You can watch horror movies anytime. You can watch Halloween specials anytime.
That's why they call it the Halloween spirit, because it can strike at any moment.
That's right.
I suppose.
Do they call it the Halloween spirit? Is that a thing?
I know there's a store called the Spirit of Halloween. That always pops up around September.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. There's usually a place called the Spirit of Halloween. Sometimes in January.
In the States, I think they call it the Halloween Boutique.
Yeah, something stupid like that. What are your go-to scary movies, Jameson?
I'm not much of a horror movie fan. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to scary movies.
Are you really?
I am. Yeah. Compared to some of my friends, even as like in my younger days, I never really was into the Friday the 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street slasher movies. Never really got into Scream. I remember watching the first Saw movie and being suitably terrified by it. But I think
that's fascinating.
I think the scariest film I remember seeing as a young man, and I think this I remember seeing it in theaters actually, was Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton classic.
Yes, classic.
So for years that was the scariest movie I had ever seen.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. I love scary movies. I wouldn't classify myself as a... There's been a handful of times where I think you watch something and then it genuinely keeps you up at night?
No. The last time I watched anything that put me in an unsettled mood before I went to bed was the show Hannibal. I would watch. So at the time I was living by myself, and I would watch that before it was time for bed. And there's a lot of psychological horror and a lot of
what are you talking about?
Serial killer stuff. And then it's
just a show about two best friends.
I just hated it. All the, what do they call it? The Wendigo. The
Wendigo.
The Wendigo.
Yeah.
That thin pitch black thing with the creepy antlers. That thing used to scare the hell out of me.
You know what I didn't like about that show? There was that one episode where there was a serial killer who made a beehive out of his victim.
Oh, yeah.
I got that thing where if you have a bunch of tiny holes that are all close together, that fucking creeps me the fuck out. I hate that. And so that was the only... I'm seeing all this gory shit happen on Hannibal, which I thought was an awesome show. That beehive was too fucking much, man. I couldn't deal. I had to turn that off and leave the room for a bit.
I hated that totem pole made out of human body parts.
I just thought that shit was funny because it turned out it was an old man that fucking pieced that together, and it was just kind of no way did he have the upper body strength to put the sixth fucking person.
I hated the silo full of the corpses all sewn together. I watched that shit and then it's well, time for bed.
No. As not a horror aficionado, it's interesting you mention Scream. Are you familiar at all with a movie called Dracula 2000?
Ooh, I remember TV commercials for that.
Remember the TV commercials?
I remember
yeah,
that,
this was right in the heyday of the Dimension Films boom of releasing all of these horror movies that were aimed at hot, sexy teens. It was right.
Aren't all horror movies kind of like tailored towards hot, sexy teens?
Yes, but there was a specific thing that happened after Scream came out, which was also a Dimension release, where they realized that horror movies could be, horror movies, but they could also be aimed at a younger audience. That's why if you look at like
you can get away with some TNA in those movies.
If you look at the movie posters from like 1996 until maybe like 2003, they're all basically the exact same poster. Like maybe there's somebody in the background, but there's like 5 attractive people kind of like in a row going out and everything. And
like women in tank tops, guys with like their top buttons undone.
And Dracula 2000, or as the marketing sold it as, Wes Craven presents Dracula 2000. He was an executive producer, so that he had nothing.
But you got to ride that screen.
He heard of it, and then he was all like, "Yeah, fucking put my name on that shit," and everything like that.
It's like Steven Spielberg and Tiny Toon Adventures.
Make some money and everything like that. I think Spielberg probably had more to do with Tiny Toon than Wes Craven had to do with Dracula 2000. Dracula 2000 is a movie which I think even came out in 1999, so it was one of those 2000 movies.
Get it up before the millennium hits.
But yeah, it was the typical sort of hot, sexy teens run afoul of Dracula in modern day. But it's notable for a couple of reasons. It's kind of a bizarre. I wasn't expecting this turn to happen. Dracula is played by a pre-fame Gerard Butler.
Okay.
And Van Helsing, who is still alive.
Oh, the original Van Helsing.
The original Van Helsing.
From the book.
Who has captured Dracula, and he's been his keeper. And what he's done is he's kept himself alive to be the overseer of Dracula throughout the eons by getting leeches to suck Dracula's blood, and then getting the leeches infused in him. So he's infused himself with Dracula's blood, and he's given himself. So anyway, Van Helsing is played by Christopher Plummer.
Oh, really?
Of all people.
Whoa.
And
he must have needed a new patio or something.
Christopher Plummer. But probably the most notable thing about Dracula 2000 to anyone who's watched it is the twist at the end, where it's revealed that Count Dracula, the reason that he has been able to essentially be immortal, the reason that silver and crosses bug him so much, is that Count Dracula is Judas Iscariot. And that's their explanation, and it's just as fucking stupid as it sounds.
Okay, all right.
And it's not a particularly notable movie. It's full of a bunch of like early 2000s like also rans of people who were famous at the time but aren't famous anymore. Like Danny Masterson is in it, and Johnny Lee Miller, and like a bunch of other people.
I'm trying to think of like what
Vitamin C is in it, and she gets her head cut off.
It's like not in the soundtrack, but she's like in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Jerry Ryan is in it. Yeah, it's not a good movie, but I guess it was popular enough that it actually had a couple of direct to DVD sequels, which were just called Dracula 2 and Dracula 3. Very confusing because it drops the 2000 entirely.
What other apostles did they sub in for Dracula after like for the sequels? Jesus.
But we're not talking about Dracula 2000 today. We're not talking about any of those movies I mentioned, kind of making this introduction run on a little bit long, be completely useless.
Third episode, they're kind of used to it by now.
Because, frankly, why the hell would we ever want to watch Dracula 2000 when we can watch Dracula 3000?
Oh boy. In space, there is no daylight. Oh, motherfucker.
Can we do a thing where, like, when I say, like, the title of Dracula 3000, like, we, like, up, like, the reverb and everything, where it's so, like, I'm just saying, Dracula 3000! Yeah. So, Dracula 3000, which has nothing to do whatsoever with Dracula 2000. Again, making that introduction basically pointless. But yeah,
no, it's a perfect segue actually.
Yep. And as you just said, given the tagline here, this is yet another movie that does the age-old, time-tested
To get
trick
results. Yeah.
of taking its monster and putting it in space. Dracula,
Jason,
one of the earliest movie monsters, is now treading the same territory that Jason, Pinhead, and Leprechaun have all done.
It's about damn time.
It's about damn time.
Now, is there any character called Nasa Ferratu in this?
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
All right,
we're gonna get to that. Now, here's the interesting pedigree that surrounds this movie, and this is what I found so interesting when I started researching this. The movie's writer and director. The writer and director of this movie is a man named Daryl James Rood.
Okay. R-U-D-E or
R-O-O-D-T.
Root. Okay.
Root. He is a South African filmmaker, and from what Wikipedia tells me, he is South Africa's most prolific film director. He has been making movies for quite some time, and looking at his filmography, he seems to make one of two films, and it's an interesting pairing. He seems to make earnest, dramatic pieces about South African history, telling South African stories, and then
like monster
schlocky B-movie horror thriller stuff and everything like that. And he seems to make them back to back. And
so what do you think like he does like for a paycheck, and what is his actual true passion?
What exactly? Like these seem to be the two things that he genuinely loves doing. Movies where they are, they're like earnest, like emotional family dramas, mixed with movies with titles like City of Blood or To the Death. Some other notable movies that he's done, and you can see like the range in quality here just by like listing like these three movies back to back. He did the 1993 family comedy Fatherhood, starring Patrick Swayze.
Okay.
Where he's a con man trying to get to know his kids.
Just want my kids back.
And he immediately followed that up by, again, like a very earnest adaptation of the beloved novel Cry the Beloved Country, starring James Earl Jones and Richard Harris. And he immediately followed that up with Dangerous Ground with Ice Cube and Elizabeth Hurley. So,
oh my God,
he's all over the place.
Now, do you think like he'll go to like, what do you imagine like Q&A is like with this guy? Like when he has like public appearances?
Probably fascinating, because there's probably half of the people there want to talk about his serious films.
And the other half is like showing up in costumes and like...
This is
it's
what
like at an aisle at a wedding, you know, groom side, bride side.
This is what I found most fascinating. Here's like the biggest discrepancy in the types of films that he makes. So in 2004, he directed a movie called Yesterday. Yesterday, again, it's like a South African film. It's a film about an HIV-positive mother who's trying to enroll her 5-year-old daughter in school, and it's just a completely serious drama. There's not meant to be anything ironic or schlocky about it, and he wrote and directed that, and that movie was nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Academy Awards.
Oh, wow.
The same year that he made Yesterday, he made Dracula 3000.
Oh.
So...
which was robbed of its Oscar nomination, I imagine.
Keep in mind, while you are watching this...
This is an Oscar-nominated
This is an Oscar-nominated director who wrote and directed this movie. Now, we're going to get right into this, but before we do, I just want to tell you... boy, are you in luck, because, once again, this is a movie that has an all-star cast.
Oh, lovely.
This has a quintet of... quintet?
Yeah, let's...
Quintet!
Sure.
Not the ent.
Quinjet.
5 people. Five people whose names really should be on the cover, because really... this movie can be sold by these 5 people altogether.
Can I just, like, make one comment about the comment already? Because one of the people credited should be H.R. Giger, because that cover art of like a monkey skull with a weird like
we're including
metal industrial art on it is
once again we'll include a link to the DVD cover so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Now, based on this image of this like cyber Dracula in space, what do you imagine the Dracula in this movie is going to look like?
I imagine some kind of like prosthetic makeup. Like, remember what the bat looked like in Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Yeah.
Like that, but with, like, wires and shit hanging off of it. Man.
Okay, so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind.
Okay.
When you see the Dracula in this movie. But anyway,
it's either that or he's going to look like Neo from The Matrix.
So, yeah. Okay, so this movie stars it stars more than 5 actors, but the 5 notable actors are Johnny Rico himself, Casper Van Dien, as this movie's Van Helsing, who's Captain Van Helsing.
Captain, of course.
Yep. Erica Elenick.
Who?
Of Baywatch and the Beverly Hillbillies fame.
Okay.
She was very, very popular in the 90s.
Okay,
And
maybe
it'll jog
teenage Jameson's memory.
She was like third build Pamela Anderson.
Okay.
Basically. We got Tom Tiny Lister Jr.
Oh, hell yeah!
From The Fifth Element.
Hell yeah!
And Little Nicky and Friday. We have legendary experimental and independent film star Udo Kier. One time Andy Warhol muse. He was that one guy in Blade. I don't know how to explain who Udo Kier is to people who don't know who Udo Kier is and everything like that.
Who was he in Blade? Maybe that'll.
He was like one of the older vampires who Stephen Dorff was forced to watch The Sun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He also this is also his second time being in a Dracula movie. He was in Andy Warhol's Dracula.
Wow, so he's been in like 3 vampire movies?
Which is a thing that exists. And fifth, and certainly not least, Coolio.
No way!
Yeah. Played a character named 187.
So he's a robot?
Yeah.
He's an android Coolio?
No, 187 is the police call sign for get over here, there's some shit happening.
Oh, really?
Like that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
Coolio.
I'm going to give you 3 guesses as to what Coolio's main attribute in this movie is. What do you think the main thing he does?
I bet he has a robot arm.
Is that
like a Mega Man like gun arm or like a Samus robot arm?
You're gonna be very disappointed. I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna be very disappointed probably about everything that you're thinking about.
Yeah, the first of many disappointments with this movie.
Extremely. Okay, we're gonna dive right into Dracula 3000. We'll be right back after this short break.
Listener beware, you're in for a scare.
Goosebumps is gonna sue the shit out of us. And they have money now. They're making those Jack Black movies. All right.
Goosebumps wasn't an audio show or an audio book.
There weren't Goosebump audiobooks? Why on earth?
They're probably.
Why on earth when there are Goosebump audiobooks? Make some Goosebump audiobooks, and then after you do that,
and credit us with the idea.
Yeah, we'll see you after the break. Alright, welcome back. The name of the podcast is, the fuck is this? Shit. This is shit.
Yeah.
This is an enormous pile of garbage.
There's a lot to not like about this movie.
Oh, and it just keeps piling on top of itself.
Kind of a chore to get through.
So this movie markets itself as a techno-futuristic take on Dracula in space. You know what?
Like a poor man's Alien with Dracula in place of the Xenomorph.
There's some things you could possibly do with that. There's ways you can take that concept and potentially make it at least make sense. Taking Dracula and putting him in a setting like this. This does the stupidest fucking thing you could ever do with a situation like that. So,
everything wrong that you could do with a premise like that, this movie did.
My God. Okay, so you know what? Let's before we get into the plot, let's just address the thing that I set up just a little while ago and anything like that. Let's dive right into let's talk about Dracula himself.
Okay.
Let's talk about fucking Dracula himself.
So I was greatly mistaken when I thought he would be some sort of like cyborg, like mutant-looking bat creature, or like a sort of a Neo from the Matrix type entity.
So
all sleek and futuristic. And
imagine you go into a Halloween store and you look at those costumes in the bags, and you just find the generic vampire, Count Dracula
Lugosi
one, and the model on the front of that bag, like someone's like dad, That's what I'm not joking. That's what Dracula looks like in this movie.
He looks like David Boreanaz, if you ask me, in a cloak, in a cape, and like a tuxedo with like the
he's dressed like Bela Lugosi from the 1931 Dracula with the cloak, with the huge, what is that called, near his head? The collar, the massive flipped collar near his head, and he's got like white makeup on.
Yeah, and he's got like his tuxedo with like the ascot and like the frilly sleeves.
He's got a puffy shirt, and
he just sticks out like a sore thumb in this futuristic space setting.
Yeah, they're on a spaceship the entire time, and they're being hunted down by the dumbest looking Dracula you have ever seen. And
it would have been fun for like maybe like an 80s in a 17th century set vampire story.
It would have been, I guess.
Because that's what the costume.
That's
was
what it
set
was.
For.
So the name of the actor who plays Dracula, Orlok. We'll get into that too. Is an actor named Langley Kirkwood, and I was looking him up on IMDb. Look at him now.
Oh.
Like, this is a guy that looks like Dracula. He can play Dracula, but like the way they make him up in the movie looks fucking ridiculous. Okay, so here's how Dracula in space works. It's basically...
Well, the movie is called Dracula 3000 Infinite Darkness in parentheses.
The movie can't... Yeah,
they omitted that little detail
after
from the
cover.
cover.
Credits are over, we get like a title, Dracula 3000 Infinite Darkness.
Yeah, which kind of blindsided me.
It makes me think that like infinite... I mean, like they do say Infinite Darkness in the movie, but so... Okay, God. So Dracula 3000. So it's basically just Alien. It's basically just the plot of Alien. Our heroes, our characters, the people we're stuck with for 86 minutes.
They're scavengers.
They're a salvage crew. They're a scavenger crew who are going to find this abandoned ship called the Demeter, which...
Oh, what was... their ship was called the Mother 3, was it not?
Yes, which is a very hard video game to find. But
we found it in space.
Yeah. I don't know what Mother 3 is a reference to. Demeter, of course, is the name of the ship in Dracula. Have you read Dracula?
Oh, I did years and years ago. I think I picked it up. We had like a paperback version of it in elementary school, so I know the names of like Jonathan Harker and Nina and like Abraham Van Helsing.
So in the novel, there's the interesting thing about Dracula, the book written by Bram Stoker, it's all written from the perspective of letters. If you read it, there's no narrative. There's no like this character got up and went over here. All of it is someone writing a letter to another character and then describing the thing that happened. And right in the middle of it, there's a section where we read the logbook of the ship called the Demeter from the captain who transports Dracula
from
and a coffin,
Transylvania to
the dirt from Transylvania. So that's what this is doing. The Demeter in this is a spaceship. The captain of the Demeter is Udo Kier, who only appears
in talking head like video segments.
Yeah, in vlogs, which were all clearly shot on the same day. And like the thing about...
they intercut throughout the movie, and I counted. It happened 6 times that like they just cut to him like having like this talking head interview about.
But it happened like a ton at the beginning, and then they stopped doing it.
There was a point
for a while.
There was a point where I figured like if I were to go into the scene selection menu and like just jump ahead, they would have been like every scene would have been like introduced by that man.
Udo Kier's a fascinatingly weird actor, but holy crap, he is phoning this in. So, I mean, all it is just like a static camera on Udo Kier's face. You can see him reading his lines as he's saying
like
these
a bad newscaster.
His eyes are moving back and forth, and you can tell this is all one take. This is all one take. This is all Like, this is, oh, he was like a genre actor.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll be able to, like, squeeze him in and everything like that. He's all like, cool, I have an hour.
Yeah.
I have an hour, and then I have to, like, pick my daughter up at school or whatever. This is the vlog of the Demeter, which is floating through the infinite blackness of space, and the crew that picks it up is captained by Captain Abraham Van Helsing, who is played by Casper Van Dien, and his ragtag
motley crew.
Oh God, motley!
Who just do not get along with each other.
No, this is a movie where you're stuck with just assholes.
Yeah,
just like the worst human beings.
It's hard to.
They're all terrible.
It's hard to find a character who's likable in this movie. I can't.
No, there is none. Probably Dracula, because he's just so hard to hate.
We got the most mirth out of him. That's for
I was rooting for him the entire time, and it really didn't seem like Dracula killed anyone.
Not really.
In this movie.
No, he turned people.
He turned people into vampires.
That's the worst he got.
So. We have, I mean, it is the plot of Alien, because right down to it, we have a character who's later revealed to be a robot, or a cyborg, or whatnot. We got the comic relief guys who aren't, like, really good for anything, except in this, they're played by Tiny Lister and Coolio. Got plenty to say about that. We have, like, a professor-type character. There was no wheelchair character in Alien, but that's just something that they decided to include, even though they didn't bother to make his wheelchair remotely futuristic.
No, like, there are parts of the movie where, like...
Because that would take money.
Yeah.
That would take a budget.
But in this movie that takes place in the far-off future where we're a spacefaring people, like, they didn't decide to build ramps or, like, hover chairs or give them robot legs or anything like that.
And then we have Mina, who was also the name of a character from the book Dracula. And in this, she's, like, an intern... But she keeps complaining like, "Oh, this is the worst summer job ever." She looks like she's 35. She has pigtails on, and that's really. At first, you're all like, "Oh yeah, summer intern," and then they get that little like a close one of many close-up shots that are just way too close.
We didn't get a good look at the cinematographer for this movie, but my God, like that guy needs to dial it back.
I looked it up. I mean, he's worked on somewhat respectable movie. He's worked on a couple of other movies with the director of this before. I mean, nothing. He did it. I looked it up just out of curiosity. He was not the cinematographer on Yesterday, the Oscar-nominated movie that he made the same year.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, the cinematography in this was nauseating. It literally...
Like, so many, like, intense sweeps and, like, Dutch angles that would rotate the scene as you're following some people down the hallway.
No...
Like, scenes between two people talking would intercut between, like, a zoom in on one character and a zoom out of the other character, and then it would just, like, switch on a dime.
But it would be a zoom in to, like, one of their eyes and their nose. It was like a toddler playing around with a camcorder for the first time, is the way that this movie was shot. But no element of this movie works at all. The music is, like, the same, like... background video game loop.
Yeah, like sort of like an industrial punk that was really popular around like the early 2000s. Yeah. And it's like the one song just kept on, like you said, like a loop.
Pretty much. It sounded just like the same Casio keyboard song that was just like going, that would just seem to be over every scene, no matter what was happening.
It had two settings, like quiet moments where dialogue had to be heard and like an action motif.
The sound quality was the sound quality was pitchy. Like when characters were yelling at each other, like it felt like their microphones were too hot. Everything was just like garish and like the set of the space station, the Demeter. It was just
like 3 rooms and then a lot of hallways.
It just looked like a laser tag building. It just looked like neon shit on the walls and pipes where you don't really need pipes or anything.
Grimy metal and everything.
Yeah. It was also it was like a Soviet spaceship, so there was just one random poster of Lenin.
Like random TV monitors would have the hammer and sickle on it. There would be
because that's what a spaceship in the year 3000 has, posters of fucking Lenin everywhere.
They're still hung up on that.
Not getting over that.
Soviets were further along in interstellar travel than I thought.
Yeah. So the salvagers get on here, and And inevitably, they find a room filled with coffins. And then fucking Coolio. There's a lot to say about Coolio. You know what? Okay, so he's not a likable character, but this is Coolio's movie.
It is.
This is easily... Coolio does give the performance
this
of the film.
I mentioned that, like, the viewing party at Coolio's house for this movie must have been hilarious. It must have been a great time because he's hamming up every scene he's in. He starts out the movie as this slacker stoner guy in space, and then
not just like a stoner guy, like the world's most dedicated, hardcore stoner.
Oh, like they mentioned that, like in the movie, that dope had been legal for 50 years at this point, and at one point they break it down.
We're only 50 years away from that.
Yeah. And
dope just became legal last week here. Like, we have 50 years to go until that shit happens.
I know, right? So it's been legal for 50 years, and they break it down where, like, he smokes something like 500 kilos of weed every day for 5 years. Yeah. He's that level of stoner. Every day for 500 kilos?
Yeah, so 187, which is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, he begins as the stoner.
He smokes weed. That's all he does.
And then he turns in. Then in one scene he's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo because he's afraid of everything. And then in another scene he's like breaking coffins because he's an idiot and he figures like, oh, the treasure's buried in these coffins.
We were told, well, he's looking for treasure, but specifically he's looking for contraband. He's looking for more weed, man. Gotta get those Scooby snacks. Yeah. So, but he's digging around in coffins with a crowbar, cuts his hand, and rather than like go get it bandaged up, he just decides to start breaking more coffins, and that's what wakes Dracula up, because he's just bleeding onto this sand, which I guess is how that works. Also, oh my god, you know what I'm just realizing right now? Okay, so one of the earliest scenes of this movie is they get on board the Demeter and they send Mina in. They send her in like her hazard mask or whatever.
Her gas mask and her
she's
raincoat.
Walking around in a scene that goes on way too fucking long, and she's wandering the halls and she's saying like, I can't find anything, I don't know what's going on. And then every once in a while we'll see something in front of the camera run by. It'll be like, and it happens like 3 or 4 times.
A cheap ripoff of that scene from Alien.
And I'm just realizing right now, Dracula wasn't even awake yet.
No.
And
it was a misdirect. We were meant to think that was like the Dracula monster, when really it was Tiny Lister.
Was it Tiny Lister?
It had to have been. Like, what else?
Do you think Tiny Lister? But like they purposefully sped up the footage to make it appear like it was something out of this world.
And like, oh, there's something stalking her.
Tiny Lister can't move that fucking fast.
No, but he did get the drop on her and put her in a headlock.
Okay, let's talk about Tiny. Let's talk about Humvee.
What an unprofessional character.
So Tiny Lister plays a character named either Humvee or Hummer. It's not particularly clear because at any point in time, characters will either call him one or the other, and it seems like they can't make up their mind what his nickname is.
I'm telling you, man, like, Humvee is the name of the truck, and Hummer is just the slang term for that.
But why give him
two nicknames?
Why does he have two
essentially the same thing.
different nicknames?
That's
if you're gonna, I mean, like nobody, like 187 isn't his name. But like no one's going around calling him 187.
Yeah,
it's the
or 1-y or yeah. That's a good point. It's just really inconsistent.
I just found it really inconsistent and really distracting that it no matter what scene they were in, it was always a coin flip as to what name he was going to be called at. So Humvee.
Probably the least likable character in this movie.
He's utterly reprehensible. And what's wild...
He's unprofessional, he's sexist, he is...
Well, he sexually assaults Mina in, like, the first scene where he, like, takes his gas mask off and pretends to be choking, and then just, like, full-on kisses her on the mouth. But I guess, in space, no one can hear you scream rape?
Oh.
Is a possible tagline of this movie? But then again... Everyone seems awful in this movie. Everyone seems misogynist and cruel, and I mean, like, there's two women on this ship.
And guess what? They hate each other.
And they hate each other in the one scene where they're allowed to talk to each other out of some sort of, like, misplaced jealousy. I don't know. Casper Van Dien is screwing the robot lady.
Or no, it's implied that they have a thing for each other, even though they clearly don't like each other. And then at one scene, he confronts her at the top of a staircase. They're inches away from each other, but there has been no, like, build-up to any kind of romantic chemistry.
Well, which we don't know who any of these characters are.
The only, like, bit of detail we get is that, one's named Van Helsing and one is named Mina. So if you're a fan of the book, you kind of know where, like,
I just realized right now, do you think Casper Van Dien got this role because he's Van Dien and he's Van Helsing? They really needed to play that up a little bit more.
Maybe.
Everyone is terrible.
I think that's giving the casting director a little too much credit.
I think that's giving credit that this movie had a casting director.
Yeah, like, let's not give too much credit to this movie. There's a lot going on here that just doesn't
Everybody
work.
is terrible in this. Everyone is terrible. People who have been good in other things are terrible in this. Everyone's awful. All the way around.
I will say, like, once Coolio gets converted into, like, that thrall of the vampire, he really starts hamming it up.
Yeah,
and
Vampire Coolio is the only reason to watch this movie.
He's the only one who looks like he's having any kind of fun being in this movie. He's dancing in scenes, and he's like
I will say,
his neck around.
I will say there are times when Vampire Coolio does tread dangerously close. Not to, like, a minstrel character, but there definitely are moments where his over-the-top performance does kind of seem like he's going to start shucking and jiving at some point, you know? But I don't know necessarily. We're going to give a little listen to a little taste of Vampire Coolio here. Here's a little sing-songy monologue that he says to himself. Right before he meets Dracula. Give a listen to this.
Rise, my son.
What is it you want of your humble and loyal servant?
You wish to please me?
Yes. Your wish is my command.
Kill them. Kill them all.
Gladly. Gladly.
He's just having fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
Coolio's having a great old time.
Coolio's having a good time on this movie. And then again, there's like a scene like not too long after that where he's been shot multiple times, and he gives this
understated reaction.
Treasure trove of a monologue here.
Do I have to spell it out to you guys? You cannot kill 187! Stop wasting bullets! I don't believe this shit. It's like you idiots don't want to listen. I am a vampire. And ain't nobody bad like me. I feel fucking invincible. The high I get from being a vampire is even better than where I got to go with that Comptonian weed we got in.
Comptonian, asshole?
Yeah. You remember that, bro? We were high for days, swimming in Comptonian ass, boning so many hoes. My nuts were swole for a week.
Yeah, and that's the highlight.
Mm-hmm.
That's the highlight of the movie, right there. I don't know. And you mentioned that like everything.
Radical. He
He
would
said
say.
radical.
He said radical. That was one of his like catchphrases.
Radical.
After kicking the ass of Tiny Lister.
You mentioned at one point that it seemed like all of Coolio's lines were improvised. I'd agree with you, except for like some moments, because I noted that there's like a couple of words Coolio had to say that just sounded weird coming out of Coolio's mouth. The first one is like when he notices like the body tied to the chair. He says, "Take a look at his bindings." So like that's not a word that Coolio uses. And the other one,
when they mistake the cross in that guy's hand for like a plus size, he's into math. That explains everything.
see that's an improvised line right there.
Yeah.
But like the other thing that made me notice is like when he was telling Van Helsing to like shut up. He's all like, stop talking. I'm so tired of your rhetoric. Like, that's totally a word that Coolio.
Yeah.
Oh,
keep in mind
man.
this guy who smokes 500 kilos of weed every day.
Coolio is just a gross dude. Like he really is. I mean, like he was like
Well, his quarters were kind of a mess. Like the walls were made of bubble wrap.
I mean Coolio the person.
Oh yeah.
He just seemed. I remember I was watching an episode of Chopta once, and it was like Celebrity Chopta, and he was one of like the guests on it. And like as I was watching, I just had the thought in my head as all like, I would never eat food that Coolio prepared for me. He doesn't. It doesn't seem like he washes his hands. He doesn't seem like a clean person, and he just seems like a gross dude. And now he's like, I remember reading once that he like is like only recording music exclusively for Pornhub.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
He like done like a deal. He's not doing like albums anymore. He's just doing Pornhub music for like their videos or something.
Well, I mean, guys gotta eat.
someone showed me a video of like Coolio these days, and like.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say someone showed you a Pornhub video.
Most of his, I bet he's thought about it. Most of his hair is gone, but the hair that he does have,
is he still keeping the?
Yeah, he still has in the dreads, but it's weird because he's mostly bald, and so it's just like a couple of like sad little dreads like falling over.
That's disappointing. Came out.
Yeah,
long way from Dracula 3000.
We're just this was a brief tangent, but I just kind of briefly felt like shitting on Coolio right now. I don't know why. It was my favorite part of the movie. What else did you like about this?
Like about the movie? Let's see here. Let me check my notes. I like how they couldn't even call him Dracula. They had to call him Orlok.
Yeah, that's a reference to the silent film Nosferatu, which is basically just the plot of Dracula, but they didn't. That movie's so fucking old. The copyright was still on Dracula at the time, so they had to change the name because they didn't.
And this is their way to honor that legacy.
Yes, yeah. Dracula's in the public domain now, so anyone can do the fuck what they want with it.
Like say, put him in space.
Yeah, but like back with that and everything, like they still had to pay, and that guy had no money, so it was all like, okay, we'll change the name to Orlok, and it's a different story.
I also like how so they mentioned in the movie that like religion, I guess, had been outlawed for something like 200 years, so nobody knew what a cross was. Yeah. Nobody knew what a fucking vampire was. Yeah. Yeah, and yet there's like all this world history that they found on vampires when they just like fired up, I don't know,
on the ship's internet. To meter.
Yeah.
So
the ship's internet.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Okay, so they find out that Dracula or Orlok comes from a planet of vampires. And I guess they ran out of humans to eat, so he brought all of his vampire buddies
onto like some cargo ship.
Onto the cargo ship.
And just set it adrift into space.
Yeah, I assume so, and they've just been like drifting through space. I don't know. Dracula talked about his evil plan at one point, but I was mesmerized by how fucking stupid he looked.
Yeah, it's hard to take anything he says seriously.
And then as Captain Van Helsing is looking through the data or whatever, he finds out that
his ancestor, the original Van Helsing.
So this is
an Earth
a book,
Mhm.
but it also actually happened, but no one's ever heard of Dracula.
He is presumably from Earth, and his ancestors fought like the real Dracula on Earth, and yet there's like a planet, a world of vampires.
It can't make up its mind what it wants to be. So this is assuming that Dracula was on Earth at one point in time, and then later on ended up on a planet full of vampires. Maybe this is assuming that at some point in like not this future, but like the past future, maybe like 25, 78 or whatever, Dracula got on a spaceship. He went to another planet, turned that entire planet into vampires, and now
came back to Earth to get killed
and is going back to Earth. Why not just stay on Earth?
I don't know.
Why did he have to go to a different planet in the first place?
And like, where did he get the he's still weak against the Christian cross.
Yeah.
So where the fuck did he pick up?
Still bothers him.
Yeah. So where the fuck did he pick that up?
One of my favorite reveals about how the laws of vampires work that this movie shows us is you can stab a vampire with a wooden cross and it kills them, but if you take the wooden cross out of them, they come back to life.
Yeah.
And
so it's like you said, it's a key.
It's a key, basically. It stops up their vampirism for a hot second.
Or like a doorstop, you remove it and then like they're right back at it. They're right back on their feet coming at you. They also wooden stakes are still effective against them, but the only wooden stakes they have available are pool cues at the time.
Yes. Yeah, that scene was really important where they went to go look for pool cues. They're
checking behind the bar.
They had to devote an entire scene where they go to look for another pool cue. They find it inside a locker because that's where you fucking keep pool cues in a billiards room.
Yeah, not on the wall or near the table. Yeah, makes no goddamn sense. Let's see. What's her name? The blonde lady who was like some
Erica Lanik.
She was like
whatever her name was.
Yeah, she was some science officer or whatever, or some representative of some parent company. She runs afoul of Dracula, but she does not get her blood taken from her. Because it's revealed that she is actually a robot of some kind.
Yeah, that's the big reveal. But like, thank God, boy, does that take a while to. We're treated to just multiple scenes of her being tied up to. Not even tied up to a chair, tied up to a couch.
Yeah.
Her arm. She looks like she's lounging on a couch.
Yeah.
And someone's just. But what is she attached to? Also, if she's a robot,
shouldn't she have like robot strength?
She should have robot strength.
Yeah.
But we're just treated to like scene after scene of her sitting across from Tiny Lister, and she's just going, "Let me out of here." He's going like, "Nah, not gonna happen."
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a vampire. I was all like, "I'm not listening to you." God, that's like that.
Yeah. For context, like
at least 10 minutes of that.
So like what happens is Dracula finds her and I guess explains his entire like origin and motivation and plan to her.
Yeah,
and then kind of sets her free to tell the others.
Can I play this? I'm gonna play the part where she tells them that they ran into Dracula. I love what she says here.
So have you seen 187?
No, but I saw him.
So you did see him?
No, him.
So you saw him. You saw him. Did you see 187? No, I saw him. So you did see 187. No, God damn it.
I saw
God, just like
who's on first?
The worst.
That could have had like just one big misunderstanding. But yeah, she wasn't actually bitten or turned into a thrall because like she is a robot, doesn't have any blood to give.
Did you just say turned into a thrall?
Isn't that how it? Isn't that what they're called? The vampire's thrall? Their slave.
Never heard that before. It's a very highbrow way for you to say that.
Yeah, for a guy who's not really super into horror films.
It's amazing that you know that particular detail. Like,
is that
what it's called?
It could be wrong. Could be 100% wrong.
A murder of crows? A thrall of vampires?
No, that is like a group of vampires. I mean, as in like their underlings. They're converts. They're called thralls, I believe.
They're just vampires.
Oh, fine.
They're just other vampires. They're fucking thrall.
I'm sure some vampirologist will write in and correct us on this.
Oh god, if this show is actually popular at some point, yeah, some sort of like vampire apologist online, or no, just someone who just like claims to be like an actual vampire.
Yeah, I would love nothing more than someone to call us out on our vampire mistakes.
So yeah.
Anyways, like once she's revealed to be a robot, they do not shut up about like her being a robot. Every line said to her after that reveal is like a put down about her being a robot and not having a heart, or like this explains why she's always so cold. Like they just won't shut up about it.
But also, they also don't seem to give a shit.
No,
they also just don't.
They didn't like her before she was revealed to be a robot.
They don't seem to give a shit about anything. No one seems to give a shit about anything. There's this scene where vampire Coolio is behind the door and he's trying to appeal to like Tiny Lister, who they keep saying they're friends, but like no one seems to like anybody.
No, and like the one scene where they do hang out together, like they hate each other.
Yeah, they just bicker.
They couldn't be more opposite. Like Tiny Lister is like a hard ass who takes nothing seriously, and Coolio is just like a slacker loser goofball who also takes nothing seriously.
So he's like, let me in, like, open the door, man. I'm like hurting everything. And it works. And Tyler Lister's all like, man, I gotta do it. He's my friend. I gotta open the door. And then he opens the door. Vampire Coolio's there. It cuts back to Tiny Lister looking just nothing. There's no emotion on his face. There's no
like well, this is one of two outcomes, and like I was prepared for
and
this.
And like,
one.
Look, I know Tiny Lister is not really much of an actor. He gets roles because he's
How dare you?
He's an imposing God. We're just pissing off everyone.
I do not want to. Tiny Lister, you're pretty good. You're phenomenal.
Pissing off like
you were great in The Dark Knight.
We're pissing off like the vampire. That's right. He was in The Dark Knight.
He was the guy who convinced the other guy on the boat to throw away the bomb.
Okay. All right. I will concede.
And he was a damn good president in The Fifth Element. How dare you say he's not?
I will concede that Tiny Lister was good in one scene. He's had one good scene in a movie, and that's because he was directed by Christopher fucking Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
All right.
But
I still think this movie was beneath his time and his talent.
So,
we cool, Tiny? We cool?
Just pissing off everyone, passing off like the vampires online,
Tiny Lister,
pissing off Coolio, pissing off Pornhub. Yeah.
Well, great.
Yeah, this is where it all starts to go.
We want to attract listeners.
We want to attract a certain amount.
Is this how we do it, by being like controversial and it's like, what are they gonna say next? Who do they don't like now?
I think in terms of things on the internet, we're not being that controversial.
Okay.
We talk about movies no one's ever heard of before. I don't. All
right. Speaking of movies we never heard of, let's get back to Dracula 3000.
God, what else is there to say?
We could wrap up the plot where Van Helsing confronts Dracula, and then like...
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like...
You think he's built up to be like this hero character. No, he gets turned into a vampire
First build, Casper Van Dien, we don't even see the fight.
No.
And this is how lazy this fucking movie is that we don't really see any Dracula fighting action. It always cuts away right before it happens, and then when it cuts back to them, someone's either bloody or dragging themselves along, or they've already turned into a vampire. That happened with Van Helsing.
It happened with Mina. It happened with Coolio.
It happened with the professor, and this was a really weird scene too. So the professor is like the nervous guy in a wheelchair with glasses. He's all like, "Oh, the vampires," and he's just
They're
like,
going to kill us all.
All this character does is spout exposition and then get left behind in rooms, and then not be happy about the fact that someone has left them behind in a room.
Yeah, so Dracula confronts him, and he says, like, I don't want to die. Dracula says, you won't die. I'll turn you into a vampire, and you'll live forever. He
says, take my hand, and you will walk. And like that makes you think, like, oh, is something interesting gonna happen? Is like Dracula gonna like maybe like give this guy like his fondest heart's desire? And not only does that not happen, and not only does Dracula not bite him, Dracula just hears a noise and runs away.
Like a wrench fell down a staircase or something.
Yeah.
And it spooked him, and he leaves.
And he leaves the wheelchair guy alone. And then the next time we see that character, Robot Lady and Tiny
Lister.
Lister enter a room, and he's slumped over in his wheelchair. He's not making like any sort of movement whatsoever, and they're all like, the thing with Casper Van Dien just happened, and there was that fake out, and you're sitting there and you're watching this. I'm all like, okay, the movie can't be that lazy.
Yeah. We never saw him get turned into a vampire.
In fact, we saw Dracula specifically not turn him into a vampire, and so Robot Lady takes a cross and so like, I'm gonna stab him in the back. Stabs him in the back. Opens his eyes. He's got red vampire eyes. He's like, and then she just stabs him much more, and then he's dead.
And so,
wouldn't it have been more interesting if she stabbed him to death and he wasn't a vampire?
Or more interesting, where like he has not turned into a vampire's thrall, but is still turned on them and like switches off their plot to drive the spaceship into the sun to kill him with sunlight.
Dude, I'm telling you, you gotta stop trying to make thrall happen. It's not gonna happen.
Well, anyways, it turned out
to like next Halloween, where like everyone is fucking like
number one costume,
thralling it up.
All right.
Oh my god, like hashtag thrall.
I say thrall, y'all.
Thrall, y'all.
Okay, so
you heard it here first. If thrall, y'all becomes a thing, you have to credit this show for bringing thrall, y'all. And also, if thrall, y'all does become a thing,
you know who to thank.
I am so sorry. I am
to all y'all.
I apologize.
Where my thralls at?
God damn it.
So anyways, like, the Robot Lady's assumption to just stab him with the cross turned out to be the right call. But, like, she has no real reason to know that he had been turned. Like,
if he's a vampire, he's still in a wheelchair. He's, like, the least
He's still handy-capable, Kaz.
just add handicapped people to, like, the list of, like, people I'm offending with this particular episode.
Yeah. Alright, so, at this point in the movie, Dracula tries to storm the room that Tiny Lister and the Robot Lady are in.
After exploding a coffin for no reason. That's another thing. That's another thing that just happens randomly for no reason. They'll just be
coffin doors just blow up.
Yeah, they'll just be in the room with all the coffins, and then they'll be looking around. Then all of a sudden, just like pyrotechnics, sparks will like fly out and explode, and the coffin lid will go like flying through the air. And like this. I'd love to break down this one scene like right at the end, like Dracula's like final moment where they're in the room, they kill wheelchair vampire.
Dracula tries to storm the room.
They cut back to the coffin room. A coffin explodes. We see Dracula goofily running down the hallway,
sprinting,
and then he's at the door. So it seems like
cape flowing in the breeze.
It seems like Dracula, in between moments, just randomly gets back into these coffins.
Yeah, when he's never on screen, like you have no idea where he is. You don't see him like lurking anywhere or like in the ship's ducts or anything. Like an effective space monster from another classic horror space movie. He just hangs out in the coffin room.
And we don't ever see Dracula rise out of a coffin. A coffin will just explode, and then Dracula will just be near
whoever
the coffin.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he tries to get into the room. They close the door on his arm, severing his arm.
In like one of those like awesome like so obviously fake arm with the like gooey red blood effects.
And the last shot we see of our Dracula in this movie is him holding his bloody stump where his arm used to be, and he's just going
screaming at the camera and
with the goofiest look on his face.
It's not scary, and yet we're told he's scary.
We're told literally he's scary, and in this dialogue right here where they're saying, you know, like why do you have to be worried about Dracula? You're a robot. Again, listen to this choice piece of dialogue that's been written here.
Wait here.
No way.
He doesn't want your blood.
He's still scary.
He's still scary.
Really? This guy? This is your Dracula? Orlok, the fucking Halloween costume store.
Yeah, and so the movie ends with them flying themselves into the sun, but before that happens...
Yeah.
We find out that
not only was the robot lady a robot this whole time,
she was like a narc.
Yeah,
she was like narking them out to like some sort of like
anti-police,
because I guess they were
anti-space salvage
operation.
operation.
Yeah, I guess they weren't. licensed or whatever. But yeah, it's revealed. Guess what? Like, guess what she turns out to be? She turned she's
her program was upgraded. She was a sex robot.
She was a pleasure bot,
mm-hmm.
and just for lack of anything better to do, even though he's been morally reprehensible to her and to literally everyone in the movie the entire time, offers herself up to Tiny Lister, and like. When you first meet Tiny Lister at the start of the movie, you think he's going to turn out to be... Like, maybe he'll get turned into a vampire, and then they'll have to deal with this giant, hulking, sex-crazy...
maniac.
Horrible person. Horrible person.
Yeah. A real physical threat to our crew.
He's ostensibly the hero of this. Because they all die. The ship explodes and they fly into the sun so that Dracula will die. And I guess that's the end of Dracula. Which it's all
like... He was bleeding out on the floor somewhere on this ship.
Yeah, it kind of looked like he would have just bled out eventually.
Yeah, that takes care of that. So instead of like course correcting away from the sun, they just decide, well...
Yeah. But like, no, this was... how they decided to end the movie. He literally slings Erica Ladick over his shoulder, and they presumably go off to fuck for 12 hours before they just blow up. That should have been the movie.
Yeah.
That should have just been the movie. Like, Dracula 3001 is just them.
A true classic.
Fucking boning. Coolio could do the soundtrack.
I'm surprised he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like in his introductory scene in his quarters, like Hard Knock Life was playing, like just like a 20th century rap song.
Yeah, rap music hasn't evolved in all that time, which of course is ridiculous because like rap is constantly evolving. Like the rap that exists right now, it did not exist when this movie was made. I mean, like the rap that Coolio was making did not exist when this movie was made in 2004. So it was already like insanely behind the times. What was my point? I don't know. What is the point? There's no point. There's no point. There's no point.
Just like there's no point to this movie.
there really isn't.
Yeah. But there was no Coolio song at the end of that movie. That was what I was gonna say. Is Coolio should have done the soundtrack.
The soundtrack.
Yeah.
He should have done the Dracula 3000. Coolio could have had fun with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I'll be honest.
What a wasted opportunity. To have Coolio in a movie just for the acting seems like a poor choice.
I'll be honest. I know Coolio because of Gangster's Paradise. I couldn't name another Coolio song. Could you?
No.
Do you know of any other of his other hits?
I mentioned Hard Knock Life, and hopefully that's one of them.
That is Jay-Z.
Well, shit.
That is Jay-Z because it's also Annie.
Oh.
So. All right.
Well then.
Interestingly enough, to get back onto the subject of the maniac who made this movie, the Oscar-nominated maniac who made this movie.
I'm glad you told me that he was an Oscar-nominated director beforehand, because I would not believe you if you told me that.
He's still working. He churns out about a movie a year. Lately he seems to have stayed strictly in South Africa, making South African films. He's done a couple of other horror flicks. He did a movie called Prey, which looks like it's about a family getting stuck on a jungle safari and being attacked by killer lions.
Okay.
He came out with a movie this year, which is yet another direct-to-DVD sequel to Lake Placid.
Oh, no.
So he's got his name attached to that.
We still haven't explored that idea to its full conclusion.
But the most interesting footnote I think I can find of his later career is that Dracula 3000 is, believe it or not the most controversial movie he's ever made.
Oh.
In 2011, he directed a biopic of Winnie Mandela, which was simply called Winnie, that had, again, big talent behind it. Jennifer Hudson played Winnie Mandela, and Nelson Mandela was played by Terrence Howard.
Oh.
In a case of getting an actor who does not look like Nelson Mandela at all.
Oh, boy.
Now I have not seen this movie, but it's notable for the fact that when it was released, Winnie Mandela herself made a statement saying, "Hey, no one called me.
Mhm.
No one came
Do
into
not
contact
watch-
with
yeah.
me whatsoever.
Who
There's
is
a
Kate
movie
Hudson? Who is...
being made about my life.
Mm.
No one even bothered to give me like a phone call or anything.
Unsanctioned.
Utterly
Wow.
unsanctioned. She was not happy.
Oh, wow.
Not happy whatsoever. Also, Jennifer Hudson doesn't really look like Winnie Mandela either.
No.
So that was weird. So, but that was made, and then that was released around the same time that other Mandela movie came out with.
Oh, with Morgan Freeman?
With Idris Elba. Oh no, you're thinking of Invictus.
Oh, okay.
I keep forgetting how many Nelson Mandela movies are. No, the Idris Elba one.
Okay.
But yeah, rest assured, this is not the Nelson
Not the
Mandela
good.
movie that you should seek out, and I can only imagine why. I'm really curious. I'm really curious
Well,
about.
I'm imagining like with the amount of reverence they paid to Dracula, I imagine like the suit that they put Nelson Mandela in for that movie is like an old like
the same
turn of the
one
century
with the
tuxedo
tall-
and
yeah.
the cape and everything.
Yeah. I'm curious to check out some of this guy's more respectable sounding stuff. I'm curious to check out the movie that was nominated for the Oscar.
Mhm.
Just because watching this, you cannot imagine
Mhm.
that
Like,
the
did he-
person who made this went to the Academy Awards.
That he just had like a bad day, or like when he made this movie, or did he?
yeah, he
have,
made
like,
this movie in a day.
Or did he have like a lucid moment when he made when he made yesterday?
The only thing I can possibly imagine is that he like maybe he got like funding from like South African TV or whatever, and he was just sitting around one day and he just said, "Dracula in space. You know what? Fuck it."
No one's ever done that.
And to a certain degree, I actually have to kind of respect Daryl Root a little bit, because he seems like a competent filmmaker who just decides to make B-movie schlock for the hell of it, for the fun of it.
Yeah.
This couldn't have been expensive.
No.
Maybe he just likes to work. Maybe he just
maybe.
likes to work, and he just likes to make silly little
Just
movies.
like hone his craft and
Yeah.
like have fun after
between-
shooting these very intense dramas.
Yeah,
on
he made
heavy
a
subjects.
movie about
He just needs to have like something to unwind
a
with.
woman with HIV, and he's all like, "You know what? I need to follow this up with Space Dracula, because there's really no other
'Cause
way
I need to sleep again.
around it."
Mhm.
So, just to wrap things up, I just wanted to mention one thing. We noticed how in the opening, this movie's called Dracula 3000, but it actually had
Infinite Darkness.
Infinite Darkness.
Mhm.
Looking around how this movie was released in other countries, I noticed there's a couple of other title changes. Interestingly enough, when it was released in other countries, it seemed like the marketing was trying to actually sell this not as a Dracula movie, but as a Van Helsing movie. Because there's a couple of other things. And
Because of that Hugh Jackman?
I think maybe they're trying to fool the international market into thinking that this is something connected to Van Helsing, because there's a character named Van Helsing in this. So in Italy, the name of this movie is Van Helsing: Dracula's Revenge.
Okay. Set in space.
Set in space, and then, yeah, exactly. And if you were to get this, you'd be all like, this has nothing to do with Van Helsing.
Yeah.
And Dracula doesn't really get revenge on it. I guess he gets revenge on it because he ends up killing Van Helsing. That's not even that movie. But my favorite, however, is, of course, from Japan.
Yes.
Where this movie
They failed to disappoint.
This movie is called Van Helsing versus Space Dracula.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate title.
And really,
that's about as accurate as this movie gets.
That should have been the title.
Yeah.
That should have been the title everywhere.
Yeah, or it should have been like Space Van Helsing versus Classic Dracula.
That's more accurate. That's
That's pretty
absolutely.
Much yeah, spoiler: Van Helsing loses.
Oh man! Anything else you want to talk about? You want to talk about the gun noises?
Oh, look!
Like they have just like regular like stock
rifles, like
rifles that
yeah.
you would see in anything that you could get. Like, so like, okay, we're doing like a movie with guns. Okay, cool. Here's the guns that you use in movies. These are the gun props. But when they fire, they sound like laser guns.
And they don't add any kind of lasers. Much like Laser Mission, there are no lasers.
There are no lasers in
Dracula
this movie.
3000.
There should be lasers in Dracula 3000.
It's in space. You're allowed to use lasers in space.
But yeah, I mean, like everything, it does that thing where everything looks. I mean, like again, like Alien, Alien was a movie that's set in the future, but everything looks like crap because it's meant to be like, oh yeah, these are like the
dark and cringy.
These are like the cleanup crew or whatever and everything like that. But then they get on like the Demeter and like they go on the computer and everything looks like a set. Well, no, I'm talking about like the computer. It looks like they're playing like Command and Conquer, or something. Like they boot up a.
You want to talk Command and Conquer? Like the special effects for the exterior of the ship. Man, those have not aged well.
If you could see, see them, they were so damn dark.
Yeah, I mean, there was that old adage for like in the 2000s, like to hide how bad CG can be, just set it at night or set it in the darkened area, so let your mind to fill in the blanks, and then like maybe it'll look good in the mind's eye. Nah, everything just looks like shit, like an old fucking Windows 98 desktop.
All right. Is there anything else you wrote down that you want to talk about?
No, I think I'm good.
We actually brought this episode in on time for once. So, yeah. Okay. Let's just wrap that up here. So yeah.
Would you recommend this movie?
No. Don't watch this. Even. Take a look on YouTube.
See if you can find any clips of Dracula from this movie.
The only thing that makes this movie worthwhile is regular Dracula in space.
Yeah. So out of place.
Every time he runs down a hallway with his mouth open is fucking gold. and Vampire Coolio.
Yeah,
but
he looks like he's having fun.
Only a bit.
Yeah,
only a little bit.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's
but
about
yeah, for the most part, like none of the jokes are funny. The action is really unspectacular. It's frankly hard to watch with how much the camera just can't stay still for 2 goddamn seconds.
It's unpleasant. Yeah. It's an unpleasant 86 minutes stuck with terrible, awful people in a movie with absolutely no redeeming quality. Yeah.
Happy Halloween, everyone!
Happy Halloween, everyone! Go watch a much better horror movie than this. All right, we'll catch you next time.
See you guys. Now, Kaz, when you said that you would not eat any food prepared by Coolio, would you want to maybe clarify that statement?
We stopped recording. We tied up the episode, and then Jameson called me out for something that I said. I want to clarify my statements.
You sure you want to fucking say that?
When I said I would not eat any food prepared to me by Coolio, I did not. That wasn't like a statement that I meant about the rap community in general or black people. Of course I would eat food prepared to me by black people, just not if that black person was Coolio.
Yeah, just specifically Coolio.
He doesn't look like he showers. Mm-hmm. He doesn't look clean. And then, as we were talking about that, I looked that up, and I realized Coolio has a cooking show. Mm-hmm. He has a cooking show called Cooking with Coolio.
I think it should have been called Cookio, but hey, that's me.
It's like, it's a book. Oh no, it's a cookbook. He doesn't have a show.
He has a cookbook.
No one wants to get Coolio back on film.
I see.
But no, it's a cookbook. There's only one thing that Coolio's been doing longer than rapping: cooking. Coolio started making 30-minute meals when he was 10 years old, and has since developed a whole new cuisine: ghetto gourmet.
Oh, sounds great.
His recipes are built around solid comfort food with a healthy twist.
Nice. Yeah, I'm down for something like that.
Well, I guess I just need to.
You don't hate it until you try it. Don't knock it till you try it.
Don't hate the player. Hate his food. I don't know where we were going with this. I really don't.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Internet. I'm not racist. I swear.
And on that note, good night, everybody.